Hello, and welcome to Hold This Thought, a podcast where I invite you to hold on to thoughts that you might not have had before. Each week, I sit across from a new guest, and we talk life, ideas, and ponder the questions that make us think twice. I hope you enjoy the show. And I knew that you had a pulse on alternate medicinal services. And I'm not talking about narcotics or mushrooms or, marijuana, but you had dived deep down into the rabbit hole, which I only know a hair's breadth about, of peptides and how they can heal muscular ailments and probably other ones as well.
Sure.
Things like that, things like GPL-1s. And I'll never forget, you brought me some in a cooler, and you're like, it's got to stay refrigerated. You got to combine these two components later, and then you inject it into the muscle. How'd you learn about that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, for me personally at the time, obviously us working together, I've trained Jiu-Jitsu, and through that process, you get ailments, tears, sprains, strains. And I was online doing some research, and somebody's like, hey, look into peptides. It's an alternative besides going to the doctor, right? Go to an ortho, you'll need surgery. Well, how can I limit that? How can I provide something for myself without having to go under the knife? Started doing research, and I was like, all right, we're going to try it. So with peptides, the ones that I typically looked at and were actively wanting to use were good for, inflammation issues, right? Maybe joint pain, maybe a sprain or strain, a ligament or something. And with peptides, the one I particularly use most often increases actin. And actin in your body is pretty, it's significant in your earlier years. And then obviously as you age and, those things typically are going to digress, like your human growth hormones and whatnot. And I found one that increases actin. And it decreases inflammation, can help small tissue repair. And I started first in my knee area where I've had issues previously. And after about 4 or 5 days, I'm like, this is either a placebo effect, I've got good in my brain here, right?
Yeah.
Or this is actually legitimate. Mm-hmm. Now, needles are not everybody's thing, and they're not always my thing. I was always one of those guys who, taking blood, I'm like, just get this over with. I don't even want to look at it, I didn't know if I was going to pass out. And then I just got comfortable with it. And then over time, I would use them as needed. It wasn't something that I stayed. I didn't have to use it every day. It wasn't like taking a vitamin or a supplement. I could use it and then use it sparingly when I needed it. Because obviously there's a lot of wear and tear over time when you are an active person. You're a runner, you work out, you do jiu-jitsu, you're a CrossFitter, right? For us in our line of work, we're up and down trucks, we're lifting boxes, right? Quote on quotations there,
Mm-hmm.
And, it's difficult as we get older because we're wild and free as kids. I can't be hurt.
You feel like you can run into a brick wall.
You could.
Run through the brick wall.
You could,
Yeah.
You could spend your nights till 4 a.m, wake up at 6 and go, I guess I got to go to work.
Yeah.
And these are something that help benefit me. And I don't, the more I did them and was able to understand them and how they worked in the body, I was able to tell other people about them that maybe had no idea about it. Like, hey, there's an alternative here. And now there's so much, there's so much stuff on them. We have YouTube, Instagram, and it's peptides. Hey guys, there's an alternative here besides going under the knife or doing, injections through a doctor or whatnot. You can do them yourself. Now, be mindful here. You want to do research before you just start throwing stuff in your body that you might not feel comfortable with, mm-hmm. which is what a lot of people's issue is like, well, if the doctor tells me to do it, then I can do it. Mm-hmm. At some point I felt like I was probably my best doctor because I'm the person who wakes up and I know everything about myself. It's hard to explain that in a 10-minute, talk with a doctor. Yeah. I can't go, hey, this is what I've been doing the last 10 years. We're going to be there for a week. So in order for me to benefit myself, I felt that I was going to be more beneficial long-term if I learned more about this. Mm-hmm. And then I could possibly help somebody else or guide them in a direction to maybe they could get some relief, pain relief. I'm no doctor.
Yeah. So. No, I definitely found the relief when I had almost like a minor sprain in my wrist and I had some knee pain troubling me. And again, I don't love needles either, but I remember using that supplement you gave me for a few days, maybe a week, whatever the dose was, and I felt relief. And since that time, which we're talking 2020, 2021 maybe, there's been so much more come out about peptides, about GLP-1s. And I was listening to a episode of Joe Rogan back in October or November. He had a guy on talking about in detail, and again, not my area of expertise, but I just found it so intriguing. He pretty much broke down your whole argument that there's an alternative to going under the knife to traditional medicine, which there's a whole rabbit hole there.
Sure.
Of is our medicine treating problems that are created by the pharmaceutical companies in the first place, right, with the diet we're eating, with the vaccinations we're taking throughout our entire life? Are we in this cycle loop that's created by and then treated by the same benefactor,
right,
the pharmaceutical companies who are lobbying in Congress, what seems like all the time, which is all the time.
Yes.
And it was refreshing to hear somebody talk about an alternative and really shed some light on what really is going on under the surface with the connection between the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry, and the allegation that he made regarding not necessarily some nefarious acts, but some curious connections between, hey, this is how we live life. We go to the doctor and we get these treatments, but wait a second, why aren't we healthy in the first place? Doctors should be for like rare cases of sickness and ailments. Why do we have 1 in 34 kids that have autism? Why do we have multiple learning disabilities in kids and affecting even adults? There's a lot of noise and chatter in that specter. I make up words. It's my thing. I'll probably do it twice more before we're done here. But in that sector, but there is a compelling narrative there of, hey, what is causing us to be sick all the time, and how can we fix it?
Right.
And you were my first exposure to that, so thank you.
Absolutely.
So we both worked at this logistics company, and then we both decided to leave. And a lot of people that work there, my dad still works there.
Okay.
They embody this mindset of, I call it the old world mindset, pre-internet, pre-AI. People who were born and grew up before AI, before the internet. You go and work at a company and you stay there for 35 years and you show your loyalty to them in exchange for a pension or benefits in retirement or healthcare in retirement or whatever. And that mindset has not been adopted by people born after 1985, 1980, 1985. That's slowly been fading out into the generation that grew up with internet, that grew up with this boom of AI. People in their 20s and in their 30s and even in their 40s now are jumping careers and industries and occupations every 2 to 5 years, doing something different. When you left working there, what happened? What happened next?
Well, for me personally, I got in a little bit of an identity crisis, right? And what I mean by that is I'm 36, 37. I've kind of pushed myself to go, all right, I got to grow. I want to continue to grow and continue to grow. I get to UPS or the logistics company.
You can say UPS.
Okay.
We already busted the can open.
Okay. I get to UPS and I go, all right, this is a good place to grow. I'm going to continue to grow. And then I realized while I was there, it wasn't something I wanted to do long term. I wasn't going to be satisfied with myself personally being there. So after leaving UPS, I took off a year and I traveled, right? Not the whole time. Went and saw family, got a chance to go back, see my nephews, my brothers, my dad, that side of the family. I'm the only one over here in Georgia. And then I traveled.
Where do they live, your family?
They live in Alabama, outside of Birmingham, like Alabaster area. My dad's in Calera, and they're all there. And, it's not a far drive, but when you work 6 days a week, your only off day is typically Sunday during, holiday times. You're like, dude, I'm not going nowhere for a day.
You stay in bed.
Right.
Especially in the holiday season.
Right. It's just mentally and physically just kind of just worn down. And for myself, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do. And in that year, whether it was, I was journaling. So I was doing a lot more journaling. I was trying to find ways. I tell people all the time, this is something I do. It's like yelling, right? It's like yelling at the top. The only way I could do that was to write. And as men, we typically tend to keep it in. Mm-hmm. The more I wrote, the more I could get out. And the more I could maybe try to better understand myself and go, where do I need to go? What do I need to do? And it was about 8 or 9 months in. I had done my traveling or what I wanted to do and see and spending time with them. I was like, you know what? I want to be a firefighter. I think that's the route I want to go. I enjoy helping people. I love being around people. It's physical. I love the physical aspect of it. I'm in a position to help and actually help. That was one thing that I remember writing down. I didn't feel like I was able to help as much in the corporate world because it's very don't think outside the box. Just stay in this little box here.
Hear your orders. Go follow them.
Yeah, go get them. And if you have anything to say, just keep it to yourself. And everything has structure, right? The fire department has structure, and it's very military-esque. There's ranks, and that's how it works. And for myself, it was like, I'm going to start over at basically 38 years old. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to take a financial pay cut. Is that something I'm willing to do? And I thought to myself, man, I want to be satisfied with myself when I retire in the next 20 years. Hopefully it's 55. It's a goal. And that was something that I knew I was going to be satisfied with because I was, one, helping. Two, it was going to give me an avenue it was going to justify or scratch an itch that I had. And I applied out of nowhere. I'm like, man, I'm 38. I'm an old man. I mean, it's in this game, in the firefighting world, because you sign up and guys are 20, they're 19, they're fresh out of school. I'm a guy who's been a career guy for the last, 15 to 16 years of his life. And I applied, and I got a call back within about a couple of weeks and said, hey, we want you to come in. And I was like, this is it, And I was reading something the other day about decision and commitment. You make a decision to do something, and me applying is my commitment to it. So for me, I was like, all right, I'm committed. I'm in. There's a process there. It took me about 4 months to get on with all the, it's not like going into a place and they go, all right, we want you to come in and do a little panel interview. And you'll get started in 2 weeks, in a week and a half. Did a panel interview, did a physical, they may want to make sure you're physically capable of doing the thing. So they set up a thing in the, 25 push-ups, 50 push-ups, how many you can do in a minute. You do this in a minute, you do this in a minute. I want you to run 1.5 miles and you have to do it in this time. Okay. Physical is not my problem. That's something I've always done. And you go through that process and they're like, okay, well, now you got to go do a poly. But before the poly, we need you to do a psych test. That's a 300-question test. And then you have to sit for an hour with a psychologist. And she's going to go over the things she's going to highlight 5 things that you might have answered. And she's going to ask you about them. And you're like, okay. hopefully you deem me to be capable enough to do this job. And about 4 months after that, long process, not something I'm used to. So another 4 months of the year that I took off, I get hired on. Like, you're going to start. All right. Of all days, tax day, April 15th, first day on the job. Beard's gone. You know, I was a guy that kept a beard for 15 years. I hated shaving. And
because they won't let you grow it, will they?
They will not.
Mustache only.
Mustache only. And, you know, the beauty in that is I always used to say I would never go to a job that required me to shave my beard. And I don't know, I guess it was just one of those things for me. I just didn't like shaving. And I get on, and it's a lot of work, like a lot more to it than, hey, you're going to put water on a fire and you're going to go help some people. And it's so vast. There's so many things that you have to learn and understand. It's, hey, do you know how this chainsaw works? Hey, you know how much rope do you need for rescuing? How much can it take? How much weight can it take? What's the minimal breaking strength? Right? And you're like, I thought this was fire.
I thought I just poured a bucket of water on,
right.
Or, you know, a huge hose.
I just point the hose at the thing that's bright, you know?
Yeah. That's what you see in the movies, but
correct.
there's so much more.
Correct. You see bag draft, and you're like, oh, man, that's what I'm going to do all the time. I'm just going to fight fire. And there's something to that, because it's like it gets you amped up, and you get there, and there's so much more to it. And it's such to me, it's a community. So you're building brotherhoods. You're working alongside people. You're only as good as the guys that you work with, you know? And it's a real team thing. And there's value in that. So you grow real close with one another. And through this process of, I think it was like maybe 9 to 10 months, we were in class. We were in class with another city at the time. You build a camaraderie with these people over time. Once you graduate your EMS school and your fire school, you get on with your station. Hey, congratulations. You've passed everything that is required of you. Here's your station. You're going to start on this shift. Then you get on shift and you're the new guy. But you're not just the new guy. You're the new old guy. You know, you're the same age as guys that have been on for 15, 20 years. And there's a little bit different dynamic with an older guy than there is a younger gentleman, because, you know, 20s, I have years of experience, you know, like I have an understanding of probably a little bit more of life than maybe a young guy, maybe not.
Your brain's fully developed. Someone told me the other day, 26 or 28 is when your brain is fully developed as a male.
Okay.
And his wife was a psychologist or psychiatrist. So at 38, it's fully developed. Whereas at 20, you know, remember your brain at 20.
Man.
Yeah, we didn't know what was going on, but we thought we did.
I think there's a reason why it took me so long to maybe find my passion, which is difficult for a lot of people. They go through life and, hey, what do I need to do? I found it, you know. But it was after I found my first initial passion, and I always used to talk about time. How do I get time back? Well, I go to work for a day and I'm off for 2. There's time, right? And you get on the shifts and, you know, you're cleaning the bathrooms. You know, you're doing the stuff that you would do. You're living here with these guys and girls. And it's just, there's something about it, because you're always doing something or learning something or helping. The value in what I do now in the fire service is you have the ability to help. Now, I say that in the sense of we give them the help that they need so they can get the proper help at the hospitals and really, you know, obviously have a greater chance. Their greater chance of living is in the initial. Their best chance, you know, to further that, they're at the hospitals, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the doctors, the MDs, the nurses. And it's been such a transition for me. I talked about the 24 to 48 and having that time, those 2 days, being consistently working 6 days a week or 5 days a week, long 14-hour days, 12, 13, 14-hour days. And now we're on a 2 days on, 4 days off schedule, so 48-96. And something I've always talked about, like I said, was time. How do I get my time back? And most people stress that at the end of their life and go, I wish I could have got time. I wish I wouldn't have worked so much. And there's value in that for me now, because I go to work, I leave work, and work is where it's at. Or sometimes where I would leave work, it's like, don't forget your computer. There's going to be some emails coming out. Might have to take some phone calls.
Conference calls.
In
your bed.
Right.
At 9 o'clock at night.
Correct. And you go, man. And I watched my mom do that. You know, she'd go to work and then she'd come home and she'd be on her computer. And I'm like, I can't. I don't know if I want to do that as a person. Mm-hmm. And it's been great for me. I mean, I'm 2 years in, you know, from fire school and EMS school and in the field. And it is one of the best decisions I've made as far as career goes for myself long term. I know I'm going to be satisfied in the next 20 years when I retire with my decision. And I can put my head on the pillow at night and not go, where am I supposed to be? I am where I'm supposed to be.
Wow.
So it's been great.
And I think so many people put their head on the pillow every night and they're asking them that question that you asked yourself for 38 years, 36 years, where am I supposed to be? Where's my place? Where's my purpose? And some people go their whole life and never find it. So many people work jobs they hate and they do it for 30 years to provide for their family or to pay their bills. And I'm not even saying I have the answer. Every person's purpose is different. But I think that the step that every person can take is asking themselves, am I happy with what I'm doing right now? Does my work bring me fulfillment or does it bring me a paycheck? Because like you, when I left UPS, I took a pay cut. But it opened up the door for me to find what I was made to do. And a lot of people live inside the bubble, whether that's a work bubble or a community bubble, such as a church. I was a part of a church one time where there was such a tight, closed community it created this bubble of understanding of how the world is. And then that happens with workplaces, that happens with churches, that happens with families. And it's not until you can take a step out of that bubble and you can almost put on a fresh lens and see the world from a different perspective and a different angle. I think that's a step that people can take, is however you can. I'm not saying everyone quit their job today, but do something. Maybe instead of going on a vacation to drink on the beach, on your next vacation, use that time intentionally. If you're miserable at your job, right. Maybe you go to a mountain cabin and if you're single or with your family, or you do something that isn't an escape from your reality, but it is rather a step towards exploring how can I change my reality by being more reflective. And for you, it was journaling.
Yep.
For some people, it could be counseling, or it could be coffee chats with a friend. I mean, there's so many ways where we can unravel that mystery within each of us. But yeah, I absolutely agree with you that we all have something we're made to do. And so many people just give up on it, give up on finding it. And part of the fun and the journey of it is, and the fulfillment you get when you lay your head on your pillow at night, is that rewarding feeling of I found it. And it's cost me something. You and I don't make as much as we did before, no. but that's ill in comparison to the joy that we get from finding something that we're passionate about, that we love doing.
Absolutely.
And yeah, you make a great point. So you're talking about how you went into the fire service and you had to be in shape. I'm curious, has there been, I know you've only been there a year, maybe a little longer. Is there a story or a call you answered that was like, man, I'll never forget this?
I think they all, one thing that a lot of guys do in the fire service is it's not really talked about, because every call that comes in is their worst day. I'm a part of it, right? One thing that for myself that I had to do early on, listening to others, listening to a lot of the older gentlemen or the gentlemen that were my age that had been in the service for a long time, was I didn't do anything to cause this, right? I am here to help, right? I can't take it on as mine. There are certain calls that are maybe a little bothersome. For me personally, my mom was sick with something and she passed away. And there's people that call that have similar ailments to what my mother had. Now, those affect me not on how I do my job or how efficient I am at the job. They just affect me more in an emotional way of, I've seen this. I don't know, I have a sense of what they're going through, but he's living it or she's living it. And those things can be a little bit more emotional for me than maybe some of the other calls that come in that others might deem, bothersome. But for me personally, those typically touch a place in my heart emotionally that I remember, and you go, it's just, it's tough. And you go home and you think about it and, it's just perspective, right? I will say this, and I don't really talk about it too much. The job reflects life in itself because a lot of these people are in their, when they call you, this is their worst, maybe some of their worst part of their life, whether it's a heart attack or a stroke or whatnot. It gives you a sense of, hey, life is short. This can happen at any moment, 40, 50, 30, 60. It doesn't always, we always think in our heads as kids, you see your grandparents, well, hopefully you're fortunate enough to watch your parents grow old and watch your grandparents grow old. 75, I'll get there, right? And then you're doing jobs or having to go, take calls. The guy's 35, the girl's 40. And you're like, that's my age. So it gives you perspective to go, man, I really need to value life and the time that I have because it could be very short-lived. And there's perspective in the calls as well. You learn a lot. And any bit, and it's not just me. I'm with the group of guys on the calls. Mm-hmm. So, and it's such a fascinating thing when you're on these calls because everybody's doing something different, right? This guy's taking care of the airway. One guy's hitting an IV. We got a Lucas machine or hitting chest compressions, right? And it's, somebody's, if there's drugs, have to, give drugs or whatnot. There's a guy doing that. So everybody's working as a unit. And it's, when you first get on the jobs, you're like, where do my hands go out? For us in logistics, you're like, all right, this is on me. I have a group of guys. It's only on me. I do everything. In this particular instance, everybody gets so good about working together. They attack what they attack, and it's like, when you're first on the scene, you're like, oh my God, I need to touch everything. And it's not that way. But it's like I said, some of these calls can be tough. But for me personally, it's been the ones that, have affected me in my own personal life with my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What percentage of your calls are like raging fires that, most people that are civilians like me would think about from a movie theater? And then the other percentage is like you mentioned, you're doing first aid, you're giving life support to somebody, you're the first responder on the scene.
For us, I work in Johns Creek. It's a very nice area. No major highways or anything. It's very low percentage of fires. A lot of our calls are EMS, which is a lot of times these days, and so, you still have to be efficient and get your training in the fire part because it can happen at any time. They do get those calls, but not as often as we do EMS stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you still have time for jiu-jitsu?
I I do every week.
How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
I've been doing jiu-jitsu it'll be 10 years for me this year.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Should we tumble right now? Is
Absolutely.
tumble the word you use?
Rolling.
Rolling.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It shows you how much I know about
Tumbling. I was thinking like backflips or something.
I got no clue.
I don't know if I could do one of those anymore.
I wrestled in middle school.
Okay.
And for a couple years. And I think mostly because my dad made me, but I enjoyed certain aspects of it. And there are other aspects I didn't like, mostly the getting slammed on the mat part. Wasn't a fan of that part.
Correct.
That not to say, again, that we're going back to, early teenage years. So there's some fuzzy memories there, as there would be for most people. I do remember not only the sucky part of getting slammed on the mat, but for certain people, there's a immense reward of that, like one-on-one chess match on the mat. And I know jiu-jitsu is a lot different than wrestling, but more similar than tennis, and for others, it's like, this is my nightmare. Do I have to go back out there? And I would probably lean more towards that camp. So I'm curious, like, what for you made jiu-jitsu the decade-long and beyond hobby of choice?
Well, I continue to do it these days. I'll kind of flash back on my history and past. My dad was a teacher and a coach. So he coached football, he coached wrestling for many, many years. And the beauty of, I had two brothers. I have an older brother and a younger brother. And the beauty of that and my dad being a coach and teacher, wherever he went, we went. And we got to spend so much time at the schools. If he was coaching wrestling and I was 4 years old, guess who was on the mats with the high schoolers? We were. And I think I started wrestling at around 5, getting on the mats. I remember some of it, but I don't remember all of it. And, I wrestled for quite a bit of time, till the time I was about 14. And, high school comes around. I didn't end up playing any sports. I just decided, wherever I was at in my life, I'm done. I'm just going to go to school, And I turned about 30, right after a divorce. And I was like, man, I need to do something. And I had a good buddy of mine. He's like, hey, man, guess what we're doing today? I was like, what? He's like, we're going to try jiu-jitsu. And I was like, please. I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is going to work. And at 31, we walked into a jiu-jitsu room. I train at Creighton's in Swanee. And I went in there and I got absolutely torched for an hour. I mean, I'll be fine. I got a little bit of wrestling in me. And after that day, I signed up for a whole year because I was determined mentally to do this and be good at this. And when you first initially start, you think about, man, there's black belts in here. There's brown belts, there's purple belts, there's blue belts. I'm a white belt, I'm 31. I can get a black belt. But how do you do it? Because it's a physical sport. It's hard on the body. It's hard on the mind. Like you mentioned earlier about chess. Early on, it's not about chess. It's about survival. How do I keep this guy's hands from around my neck? And I remember going in early and I was, a little spastic, which everybody typically is in the beginning of it, And I was rolling with a 16-year-old kid. And I'm like, and he beat me to death. And I'm thinking, maybe I shouldn't have signed up for a year, because you go in with a little bit of an ego. And as these things happen to you, you obviously can't let your ego continue to go, right? That's how you get hurt. That's how you maybe not have a good name for yourself There's some character in this as well. It's character development, and it kills your ego real quick. And you go, man, maybe I'm not as tough as I thought I was. And for me personally, wasn't always an intellect. I was a grinder. So if I fixed my focus, I was determined to get where I wanted to go. And I showed up every day that I could, that I worked. It was great for me because the job I had at that time was on the same street as the Jiu-Jitsu gym. So very valuable for me, distance-wise, time, got off at a decent time. And for me, Jiu-Jitsu is so much more about, I went for I said this when I got my black belt, I went for the belts, but I stayed for the people. And what I say that is you're training with doctors, lawyers, race car drivers, blue collar workers, white collar guys, business owners, right? That's who they are on the outside. Once they get inside on the mats, they're not those people, right? You can't wrap your identity up in your success outside of this gym, inside of the gym. And they always say, and I used to say, the mats don't lie. I can tell you face to face that I'm good at all these things, and I never get how I can't really prove it to you, right? Maybe financially I could pull up in a nice car or something, but there you got to prove it, and it was a way of, how do I kill the ego? I'll tell you what's going to do it. Jiu-Jitsu is going to do that. But it's also going to build these friendships and these people. I've been training with the same people for 10 years, and I've built some of the best friendships that I've ever had with people that I never would have met in my entire life, ever. Because they do.
You wouldn't run in the same circles.
Ever.
Normally.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're in there and you're just like, hey, I'm so-and-so. And there's so much, and to me now that I've transitioned, because I wanted to compete, I wanted to win things, I set goals for myself when I was doing it. I had a lot of great mentors and coaches, and the gentleman that owns the gym, Paul, is such a great leader and person, and has built a fantastic gym and environment for everybody to work under without all pressure or anything like that. Just come train, man. Just try it out. And over time for me, I did my competing and did that. And now I'm in a role, right, which a lot of times we don't always think about, is I'm in a role of helping. And it transitions well to my firefighting. Maybe it helped shape me mentally to go, hey, there's a little push there. There's another form of helping. You should do that. And I value so much of being able to pour whatever I've learned into someone else. And teaching now, you have the ability to do that. We know this, being in management, you can dictate the people around you just by how you come in every day. If I'm riding my highs, but if they know I'm at my lows, right, I'm the same person at my highs and my lows, no matter what, when I come in here. And there's value in that. So when I come in, even if I'm having a bad day, once I step in the door, I'm in. I'm vested.
You leave it at the door.
I leave it at the door. And it's been super valuable for me to be there over time in the 10 years. And it has shaped me and helped me and guide me into the direction I believe that I'm supposed to be in. Obviously, there is the pain and the detriment of your body.
That's what led you to the peptides. Yeah, I could imagine.
That's going to take me straight to the peptides. You're a normal guy, you usually go play video games. Support that 100%.
Yeah. Who plays video games? Those guys are crazy.
I spoke about my brothers, and they're both wonderful human beings, dads, husbands. They're great. Even though we all played sports and wrestled, I went this route. And, my little brother, he's a gamer. He's just finished his degree in cybersecurity. He's a computer guy. He loves that stuff. he tried jiu-jitsu he came into a class to maybe try it and goes, this isn't my thing. And that's okay, you know? And older brother's the same. He never I don't think went in and tried it, but he's like, it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
You know?
I think it's definitely one of those things that it's for a certain type of person.
Yeah.
The person that either loves to just be physical, or the person on the other end of the spectrum who they're looking for that ego reset, or they're looking to do something hard. Maybe they don't even want to do it up here, but down here, they're like, I want to do something hard and challenge myself, where I'm putting myself in an uncomfortable position over and over and over again.
Absolutely. And, you know, the great thing about jiu-jitsu is you don't have to have any sports experience. That's the beauty of it. Some of these guys come in and they've never played sports their entire life. And they get in there and, you know, you build a bond and a friendship with these people. And they're growing and learning, and like, it's almost a little intimidating going in there going, I've never done anything like this. This is very physical. This is way out of my comfort zone. I've been in that world, so maybe it was a little more comfortable for me. But those that come in without any of that, those people, I mean, you got to have some value in that. Somebody just to step in and go, I've never done this before, but I'm going to stick with it no matter what. And that's always fun to see. Somebody that you're like, this guy's not going to get it. And then 3 years, you're like, he gets it.
Yeah.
You know, and now he's sucked in at this point. He's you know, he's bought in.
It's definitely a cult following.
Yeah.
Kind of like CrossFit and pickleball.
Right.
That's my camp. I'm in the pickleball camp right now.
Right.
It has a cult following,
Right.
which is not wrong. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, you have a loyal fan base.
Yes.
Fan base is the wrong word. A loyal subscribership of people who make their lifestyle. Either they make that a part of their lifestyle, or they center their lifestyle around it. And there's a spectrum there. What belt are you?
I'm a black belt.
Oh, we're definitely going to have to not tumble. Roll.
Roll. There you go. You can
See,
tumble.
You're so... I would be tumbling. You would be rolling. Yeah.
It'll be...
That smile is deceiving. I would be eating concrete.
Well, you know, over time, you know, it's just one of those things where, you know, some guys do it 15, 20 years, get their black belts. Some guys do it shorter. Some guys do it longer. And the beauty is it's always going to be there. So if there's something in your life, baby, like we've had, jobs, stuff like that, there are times where I've had to take off. You know, I took off a year one time, and it's always going to be there. Sometimes people, you know, a lot of times when that happens, they tend to, all right, I'm done. Well, in my brain, I started something I would like to finish. I had a tough time with that in high school, where I want to start something, not finish it, you know? And in my 20s, I really got sucked into, if you're going to do something, you're going to hone in and you're going to do it. And that was my mindset going into it. And
yeah.
I accomplished my goal.
What's the main distinguishing, and I know there's hundreds of things, but if you had to summarize it for someone like myself who's never been in a jiu-jitsu gym, is it called a gym?
Yeah.
What's the main difference between like the first day guy, the guy who's like on the middle of the pack on his way to black, and then the guy who just freshly got his black belt? Like what are some like key differentiating skill sets, or like things that you're able to do effectively and with a high success of winning at those? I know there's more than 3 stages, but to kind of summarize it,
Sure.
And beginning, middle, and you know, I reached the top of the mountain, black belt.
So initial is always the ego, right? You're going in. I mean, not everybody carries the same ego going in. Some people are very, you know, docile, calm, collective. Somebody that's maybe played sports, wrestled, maybe done a little bit in the past, they're still like, it's like wearing your Letterman jacket as a 35-year-old, you know?
That's a good way of putting it.
See this patch? 2 years, you know, varsity. Okay, well, that doesn't always transition well. So early on, it's survival, you know, and you have to be okay with getting beat up. I use that, you know, you're going to have some bad days. You're going to have some bad months for a while. and you're fresh. And this is one thing I didn't talk about earlier. This is something that I kept personally for myself. I have nothing to lose. I'm new. I have nothing to lose. That was it. And I told myself that every week when I got torched, every round, every class, until it started to get a little better. Started to learn positions. I started to learn control. So going into the middle part of it, you're really scoping yourself, like your game, what you do, and there's your evolution of your growth in who you are and how you roll. And that's usually the middle of the pack around purple belt. And once you start to evolve your game, then it's about more control, right? You're not as spastic. You're not having to move 100 miles an hour to get where you need to go. That's where you think early on, I got to go fast. Faster I go, faster I'll get there. They say slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
We learned that at the Big Brown.
Yeah. Yeah. Expect the unexpected, you know?
Yeah.
And the middle of the pack is about shaping yourself and your game. And then at that point, you know, you're building yourself. There's a lot less ego for me at the time. And there's that evolve, you know, to who you are on the mats. And once you get to black belt, a lot of people talk about it's like starting over again. And I don't know if I really believe that, because in my eyes, that was the goal. The goal was to get to black, you know, and that was a real big goal for me. They're like, hey, this is going to take possibly 10 years of your life, commitment, consistently to get here. And that's like somebody telling you earlier on in your career, hey, you're going to work here for 10 years before
you get a manager job.
Yeah. You're like, wait a second. You know, you're investing so much of your time, your effort, your body, your mind. At black belt, it's about, like you talk about chess, it's about being one step ahead of the guy that you're training with. Seeing his next movement, feeling. This is where you get into the feel aspect of it, where it's like, it's not so much playing it out in your head like you are earlier on. Hey, if I do this, it's like, oh, that didn't work, right? When you get to black belt, it's more of a feel game. Like I jokingly tell my buddies now, and it's funny, I'll sing songs that are on the radio when I'm training, because I don't always have to think about it. It's a feel thing. It's just I've become accustomed to my body, my game, positions.
Nothing would freak me out more than rolling with you and you're just start singing, put my hair up, another one tries again. I would be like, this is the day I die. I'm going to die right now.
And I think there's a little bit of like, we try not to make it serious. This is something we all pay to do, right? And having an environment that feels comfortable and is not like, all right, guys, you got to shut up when we're training. It's a very loose environment. And when you get to, like I said, when you get to black belt, it's more of just feel. And some people say you start over at black belt because you're learning again. You're always learning no matter what once you start. And it's differences in stripes and stuff. Once you get to black belt, it's 3 years, you get a stripe. Another 3 years, you get a stripe. Another 3 years, you get a stripe. Then it's 5 years, you get a stripe. And then, so on from there. And I hope I didn't butcher that. So it's, you're investing. It's an investment. But it's good. As much as you think about it long term, it's so good for you mentally. And being around good people and camaraderie that you stay. I text my buddy every time we go train. I'm like, hey, you training tomorrow? He's like, yeah, I'll be there. I'm like, cool, I'll be there too. And it's just, those are things that you do over time, and it's been super beneficial for me, and I'll continue to do it as long as my body
allows me to.
Allows me to.
I need to do something. I love playing pickleball, but it is not enough. And my wife and I just had our first child about a month ago. Thank you. And we have been, we're at home. Whereas before I was playing pickleball 2-3 days a week, 2 or 3 hour sessions, and not professional level, but not beginner level. There's some complexity in the game. The rallies are a little bit longer with the people I have the privilege of playing with. And I've lost some of that physical momentum, and I need to do something. I don't know that jiu-jitsu is for me, but
I think men in general, we have our jobs. You have to have, in my personal view, you need some kind of hobby as a man, some kind of, camaraderie with other men, or whoever, it gives you a sense of purpose too, where it's like, we all enjoy this. It's nice to be around others. You can't shell yourself away. You sit at the house for so long, you're like, man, I'm really getting down on myself. I should be doing something. I feel like there's like a constant fire in a male that's like, I need to be pushed. And it doesn't always have to be jiu-jitsu. You could learn a musical instrument, guitar, whatever. And there's still, you're testing yourself. You're trying something new. Because my whole thing is I've always tried new things. And I'll pick it up. And if I don't like it, I'll try something else. And that's the beauty of trying new things. It's like, just try it for 30 days. And if you don't like it, or 10 days or 5, and you go, hey, this isn't my thing, there's so many probably cool things that can get your mind off of the stress. That's one thing that jiu-jitsu has done, is when you're in there for an hour, you know what you're not thinking about? Missing a call, right? I'm at work, right? Oh man, I forgot to do this. Oh man, I got to take this phone call at 9:00, blah, blah, blah. You're stripping all that away, because what you're worried about is getting choked.
Getting choked out by the guy across from you or gal across. Are there women?
Absolutely.
I keep wanting to say tumble. It is not the right word.
Rolling.
Do women tumble at your gym?
Women roll at our gym.
Yeah, roll.
They teach.
Did I say tumble again just there?
Yeah. We're going to get there. We're just like a process.
Baby brain.
Yeah.
I got the baby at home. Do women roll at that gym?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's women have picked it up. A lot of times, it's promoted self-defense, but it's good for them as well. They come in and, there's other women that train there. There's comfort there, right? Hey, there's other girls in here. I can do it. Oh man, I like to be here. And they teach as well. And they're great teachers. And some of them are fascinating athletes. They come from, maybe some high profile backgrounds or whatnot. And like I said, it's camaraderie. So you're in there and it's like a big family when you're in there. So it's one thing that you take your mind off of all your stresses and everything else while you're in there, which is nice, because running, I don't care who you are, does not do that. It
does not. Yeah. Running is not fun. At least for me. I have friends like you probably do that enjoy running.
Correct.
But it is I like to say it this way. It's built for the people who really enjoy alone time.
Yes.
Because unless you start at the same BMI with somebody from day one, and then you have that partner for 10 years, you're always going to be running at a different pace than a running partner. If you are running with someone more athletic than you, they'll be slowing down for you, making it less efficient for them or even enjoyable for them. If you're running with someone that's a little bit further behind you on the fitness journey, you're going to be slowing down for them, and now you're going to be the one that's not enjoying it as much. But it seems like with jiu-jitsu, the black belt can have just as much fun with the first A guy.
Correct.
And there's not as much of a, maybe the first A guy or gal won't enjoy it as much, but
yeah, they don't. Sometimes there's big eyes. Like, what did I sign up for? I have signed up for the wrong thing. But I think that's about leadership, and if you have a group of guys in there that are upper ranks, black belts, and they're respectful and, helpful in those things, those people tend to, come back. But if you're, an ego-driven guy, you might run them off early. It's letting them know and making them aware that, hey, this is your pace. Remember, this is your journey. My journey might be different than yours. I might get here in 9 years. It might take you 11, or some guy might do it in 6, right? You strictly have to focus on you and your own journey. And I think that's where sometimes people can get a little off comparison, But it's such a valuable thing mentally. That's the biggest takeaway, is it's just such a release and relief to get in there and train.
Yeah, you leave everything at the door.
That's it.
You had talked about earlier when we were talking about firefighting, how some of the calls are more difficult emotionally because of the similarities of not the patients, I guess they will eventually be patients, but the victims of the 911 calls, or even the people who are involved. You mentioned that you lost your mother. What was that like for you?
It'll be 8 years for me in 3 days. She passed away on the 28th of February. It's a time that I always take off for myself. Obviously, for me, that's impactful. 8 years down the road, I try to take that time off because I was close to my mother. We had a good relationship. We were very similar in who we are and, how we are. She got sick at the age of 57, and she had a disease called ALS, which most people know it as Lou Gehrig's disease. And doesn't run in my family. No one has had it previous in my family. And it started with shoulder pain. My shoulder hurts, and I say those things. I was at a job at the time where I was able to be with her as much as possible during this process. Now, by the time she was given her diagnosis to death, was a little less than a year, maybe right at a year, maybe a little less. And I happened to be able to spend a lot of time with her, and there was things that she said and had to go through that were difficult. I've heard this several times. You see your parents as like Superman, Superwoman, like they, and then you get older and they start to, they get older and things start to wear down, or they have heart problems, and you're like, oh, man, Superman, you can't get hurt. Mm-hmm. You're going to grow old. You're going to see the grandkids, and you're going to be able to see me. Like, she wasn't there to be able to be with me for my firefighting thing, which would have been, great, fantastic. Maybe there was a little push there for me. I got to experience, she had to, go through it. And I happened to be there with her during her diagnosis and the process of things. Got to take her to the doctor and hospital. And I gradually got to watch a person, just like work, full of life, get a diagnosis and go, hey, there's really nothing we can do for you. And as a kid, you're like, oh, man, I'm sad. But she has to, come to terms with her own mortality, right? Mm. And this is where I talk about the perspective thing is, I feel like when those things happen, I had conversations with my mother during the process, and it was always, man, I wish I could have let some things go, right? And those things kind of stuck with me, throughout her process, because you watch them as, they're doing everything that they're supposed to do, working, lively, see them Thanksgiving, and then the disease starts to, progress. And when you have progression in this particular disease, it's a neurological disease, so things start to deteriorate. You can't use your arms, She would say stuff like, stuff that we take for granted, like something as simple as brushing our teeth, combing our hair, right? Well, she couldn't do any of those things. And she would say things like, oh, I just wish I could brush my hair. It feels dirty. And you're like, and as a kid, you're like, golly, like, how do I take that away, right? And, watching her progress, and obviously she ends up passing away at the age of 58. You get real perspective on life, and, I can't do anything. How do I help, right? And at some point you can't, you can just be there with them, soak all the time up that you possibly can, and you value that. But then you take the negative, I'm sorry,
it's okay,
emotional stuff. You take it, and then you push it, right? How do I take a bad, right, and turn it into something good? And you think about those things that they say, and they say, man, I wish I could do this. Simple things, right? And when you do that, you really that's where the journaling and stuff comes in. Man, what do I need to do to best serve myself and others in life? Because at that point you feel helpless, because in itself you're there, you're just trying to be basically a support system to somebody who's not necessarily in the right place. And I don't know if something like that maybe did push me. I think it really did in a lot of areas to push me to where I'm at today in the fire service, because there's a sense of help, right? I can't fix their problems, but maybe I can help them along the way, And I learned a lot in that year, spending time with her, which I was very fortunate. The place I was working at, this was previous to UPS for me, and they gave me the time away so I could be with her, spend the time with her. And, something, I had two buddies at the time, their moms passed away at the same time, so we could kind of bounce off each other, have a little bit of a support system, and, I was able to be there with her along with the rest of the family, her sisters, my brothers, when she passed away. Not everybody gets to do that. Some people get a call and go, hey, some things you don't really think about. Some people get a call and say, hey, your so-and-so is gone. You don't get to say goodbye, right? I was very fortunate to be able to do that. And obviously the trajectory in my life has pushed me into a helping role in the fire service. And it's great. It's the perspective is, it's a sad situation. You definitely you want your mom and your dad to grow old, 70, you think 75, 80, hopefully 100. I have a grandmother who's 93 and still rocking like a champ, dude. And she's great. But it definitely put a lot of perspective on my life that at any moment in time, it could just be taken away from you. And now you get into that second guessing of I shoulda, coulda, woulda. And I personally wasn't going to do that in my life. Where you talked about situations. I'm fortunate enough in the situation where I could take off for a year, where some people can't. They have to do it in the transition while they're in another situation. So I knew and had learned in that process that I wasn't going to wait anymore,
First of all, thank you for sharing that.
No.
I can imagine. My parents are in their late 50s now, coming up on the early 60s, so it becomes very real for me. What would you say to somebody who's either just lost a parent or their parents on their deathbed, and maybe they haven't taken the time to be as present in those final moments?
I think this is one thing that I talk to myself about, there was a few times for myself is, hopefully you grew up in a home, and not everybody does, where you have two loving parents who are, their love is unconditional. There's no conditional. What can you give me? You make a bad decision. Guess who's going to be there? Your parents. Hopefully you have a loving, or even if you don't, that kind of love it never gets replaced. Relationships, people that maybe get married, there's a little difference there. People that have kids, you have an unconditional love for your kid, and that doesn't go away. But I do know this, and I talk about this pretty adamantly when I speak on this, is there's a part of you that dies that day when they die. And sometimes you'll see these like memes or pictures, and there's a puzzle, right? And the kid has a puzzle piece in his hand, or a dad has a puzzle piece in his hand. Because, your parents are guiding you in all these things throughout your life. Hopefully you've got to experience unconditional love from both parents. I was very thankful and grateful for that. But a part of you dies that day, and you don't get it back. So if you have any qualms or disagreements, the downfall that what we have for us as individuals is we have a lot of regret, and you have to do a lot of forward thinking in this process. You go, man, what if I'm 60? Am I going to regret this? Which is very difficult in itself. You don't want to regret any of those things. Saying something, apologizing, letting them know that you care and you love them. Even if it's, you're upset with them, but that person that is gone, that loves you no matter what, is not going to be replaced ever. And obviously if you're a parent, you're going to pass that on to your kids. And that was something that I had to, wherever it died that day, it stayed there. It's not going to get replaced along the way, which is why I'm so emotional 8 years down the road, Yeah. Because she would have been 64, 66 years old this year. So that's what I would tell somebody, cherish that time that you have with them, and say your goodbyes. Not everybody gets a chance to do that. And as hard as it is, there might be value for you in that, to be able to say your goodbyes. And I was very fortunate enough to do that, because not everybody gets that opportunity.
Thank you again for sharing that. It's loss is something we all experience at some point in our lives in one way or another. And we could probably fool ourselves into thinking we're ready for it, or we can maybe mentally prepare for it, but I don't know that you're ever able to really fully prepare for it and fully anticipate the impact of burying a piece of yourself with your family member or your loved one when that happens. I'm still working on my awkward segues, so I have no idea how to go from such a deep topic into such a more lighthearted topic. So I'm just going to jump right in.
Sure.
You mentioned before the show that you have taken up a hobby with coffee.
I have.
Not just drinking it, though.
Correct.
There's more to it than that.
Correct.
Tell me.
So, I'm always on a journey of trying new things. And I've spoke about this several times. And you don't know if you like something unless you dive right in or research and go, hey, I think I want to do this. So me and my buddy Orlando decided that we enjoy coffee. We go have coffee talks. We go to local places, maybe around the gym, have a coffee talk. And we would go, hey man, a lot of this stuff is expensive. I feel like there might be a little bit of price increase here, on coffee beans. And I was like, maybe we should look into that for something that we should do. Maybe there's an alternative there where we can sell coffee beans, single source coffee beans, not anything with any extra additives, right? And we searched around looking for, local roasters, people that we could maybe, get supplies, coffee beans through. We were fortunate enough to find someone. And what we did was we went by and started trying some coffees, He brought us in, took us into the roastery, had us try, various different coffee beans. And me and my buddy were like, all right, let's do it. So last year, we started our name and thought of all the fun names that you could think of. Hey man, what's gonna work? What might bring? Because it's always like a marketing. You think about it in your brain like, what's a good marketing name? What can we do? And me being and him being, I didn't want to get too elaborate. We just combined our names together, basically. And we're like, Norland, do you like it? Yep, that sounds great to me. And it's nothing crazy. We started slow, and we're continuing to just, kind of slow roll it. And basically, hopefully looking into doing, people do like the Brazelton days or
these little mini festivals.
Swanee mini festivals. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get to that. But right now we are basically just selling beans out of the car, and fortunate enough for me at the fire service, coffee is like water.
Yeah, you need coffee. Yeah. When you get a 3 a.m. call.
Right.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the guys have liked the coffee that we've brought in. We typically have done 3. We've done a Colombian, a Nicaraguan, and a Brazilian pea berry. And I've got, we give out samples. So, hey, try it. Let us know how it works. We give out these little 4-ounce bags. We're at the house, both of us. He's at his house. I'm at my place. Measuring, if I have to iron the thing on or if it's got a little, plastic or elastic and giving out samples. Hey man, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. We came up with a design, for our name that we could put on our coffee bags. And it's been great and fun. It's not something that we're looking to retire on. It's just a fun little hobby. And I had spoke to you before in regards to, I have these hobbies and I feel like, nowadays it's always entrepreneurship, right? Be your own boss. And that's cool. Listen, I don't knock anybody. I always support everyone that wants to go that route. Some of my hobbies haven't always, I'm like, how do I make money off of this? I don't know if it's how I'm wired or how I grew up or just who I am. I'm not always looking to do that. Sometimes it's just fun to me. And luckily, I'm fortunate enough to be with someone who has the same mindset. How can we give this at a good price and not rake them over the coals and go, we get it for this and we should charge them 250% over what we're getting it for or whatever, right? It's like, that's unnecessary to me, right? Because I go in the store and, now with the prices at the store, you're like, well, shit, let's go over there and see what they got on sale. That meat might be going bad tonight, but I bet we can cook it tonight.
Yeah.
Or I got to throw that puppy in the freezer.
I hear you. Right. Yeah, you can put it on ice right before it ticks over.
So you're constantly looking for the, I go to the deals sections and stuff like that. I mean, if it turns into something great, but to me, there's value, and especially for him, we're not just going to be putting out coffee that we don't like. It's going to be things that we love when we drink it. And also getting feedback from those that are drinking it. It's like, okay, we can do this. This is a a fun little thing. Maybe, and it'll help me along. Maybe it takes me, maybe I learn something new and I have, LLC stuff, right? How do I do that? It's so scary. Like, it's like 10 minutes of your life to start those things, you get so enthralled sometimes when you're online, like, how do I do this? All right, YouTube, help me. It's like you're overthinking. It's 10 minutes. And that's where you start. And then and it's like I told you earlier, it's like I'm a grinder. It's just, you slow move, you keep moving. Eventually, whether it's 3 or 5 years down the road, if you enjoy it and it's a hobby and it turns into something great. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. It's a learning tool. I can take that and maybe apply it to something else. So
I'd love to try the coffee. I'll
bring you some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for the next best coffee.
Oh.
I've just recently got into French pressing a couple months ago, and I wouldn't say I'm an aficionado yet, but there is something about the French press that is special in that, with paper filters, it pulls the oils off of the bean, which, this is your world, so you would know more than I do. But from my understanding, it pulls the oils out of the drink. But if you do a French press, and some of the cousins to the French press, there are other ways as well, where you don't have a paper filter in the process, you maintain some of that mouthfeel of the oil from the bean in the drink. And I've really been enjoying that experience. And I would imagine these, I'm gonna call them special beans.
Yeah.
Your special beans would make it even taste even better.
Yeah. You don't really, when you're a kind of guy or a girl that's constantly on the go, right? You're always on the go. It's like, hey, just ladder that black coffee up with some sugar and some creamer. I gotta hit the road. I ain't got no time to press.
Yeah.
Or grind.
Give me the Folgers.
Correct. Give me the Folgers.
Or
right?
Maxwell House.
Right. Or Dunkin', right?
Or Dunkin', yeah.
Just let it rip. When you get it, it's so intricate because you go in there for the first time and you're not necessarily like, this guy's the guru, right? It's like I was talking about the Jiu-Jitsu thing.
At the roastery.
At the roastery.
Yeah.
And he's talking to you and you're like, I picked up 2 words. The other stuff he's like, taste this. It tastes like this, this, and this. And you're like.
Notes of cocoa and black ribbon on a summer's eve with nut balance. And
I drink one. I'm like, this kind of tastes like a leaf.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know what a leaf tastes like? I don't know. I was a child, you just, and it's crazy. The more you're in it and you do it, you start to pick up those notes in the coffees and the beans. And you go, oh, this is what he's talking about. But it's time, right? It's like, you don't go in there thinking like caramel, right? There's a hint of rosewood or whatever. But, when you go in there and you start trying stuff and you go, oh, this is a good one. I like this one. This is something I could drink every day. Black, right? Because back in the day, I was like, give me that French vanilla. We're going to put, it's going to be half and half.
Yeah, half coffee, half creamer.
Yeah, I'm basically drinking a milkshake at this point. But, us was to provide a good bean to those ones that we like to others. And it's been a fun little journey so far, like just with the business side and learning more about the beans, where they come from, right? How they're roasted, the temperatures. And you don't think about that when you're in the grocery store aisle picking out a bag. Right. You look for the design, know. Nowadays I'm looking for like the most manly design. I'm like I don't think my local grocery store sells Black Rifle coffee, but I'm looking for like the closest thing to that. So, cause it's probably going to be like, a flavor I like. Right. And if it's like the most flamboyant packaging, I'm probably not getting that one for me. Cause I'm looking for a whole bean coffee that I can grind at a medium coarseness to put in my French press, to drink black, that has that oil profile still in the beverage. Which is a very different experience than drinking from a Keurig. Correct. 100%. And it's, like you talk about, you see the skull and crossbones on there or whatever they have, and you're like, oh yeah, you think I'm tired today? My heart's going to be going at 150, but I'm going to be awake.
And not only that, but it's going to make me more manly.
Yeah, I know. I've increased my testosterone
in my head, Noah, when I drink that coffee that has a skull and crossbones on it, I go from looking like this to looking like this. Like it with one cup. And then it goes away in 4 hours. I go back to this form.
I was explaining to somebody about, you go on vacation, like you're at the house, you have a bourbon, at the house, you're a bourbon guy, let me get it on the rocks, or, let me get an old fashioned. That's typically, because, when you always reference manhood, it's like cigars, barbells, bourbon, right? When you go on vacation, it's like on the beach, you're like, take that pina colada.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You can't drink neat bourbon on the beach. You'll pass out.
Right. For some reason that transition goes over. And I think about that sometimes. I'm like, dude, I want something flavorful.
Yeah.
And when you're at home in your comfort zone,
no one's watching.
Correct.
You can put the peppermint mocha in.
Correct.
And nobody's gonna know.
Correct.
But you'll know.
Yeah, you'll know. But that's the thing. It's like, it's covered. I got a top on it. We're good. Nobody's going to drink after me anyways.
Yeah. You make a good point. Yeah. If I find myself at the beach or on vacation with my wife, I will drink drinks that are colorful.
Yes. Yes.
Whereas I'm not drinking that on my daily basis.
Correct.
There's almost a freedom. And you're in a new environment. Nobody knows you.
Right.
No one's watching you from your normal social circles that you exist in. You can get away with more.
When you're with your buddies at the house, it's like, bourbon, vodka, tequila. It's lined out on the counter. You're not like, guys.
Who wants pina colada?
Who wants pina colada?
Who wants sex on the beach at our poker night?
And this is what I love about dudes. And me and my buddy always send reels back each other about dudes being awesome, just how, if you're that guy that does that, it's going to be relentless and you're never going to hear the end of it, which is the beauty of male bonding. Because if I show up to one of my buddy's houses and there's pina coladas, it's on. You're never going to live that down. You'll get cards of pina colada. You'll get memes of pina coladas. Whatever it is, gifts, whatever it's called.
Christmas, you'll get like a gift set for a pina colada gift set.
Correct. Yeah. But that's that comfort level of the home and your buddies is like, all right, stick to the bourbons here.
Yeah.
Pina coladas with my wife at the beach.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh man. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you so much for having me, dude.
Before we go, I know you're just getting started with the coffee thing. Is it something you're looking to promote and take public, or is it word of mouth? Is there anywhere are you trying to promote a website? I know you don't have a website yet, but like a social media, are you posting stuff about it yet? Or is it just kind of more of an organic word of mouth?
Yeah, it's been more organic word of mouth. I'm in the process of getting the website built. It's not up or anything. We don't have a social media or haven't really posted any pictures. A lot of it has been, like I said, slow rolling, right? Mm-hmm. So we're just kind of inching it by time, and the more that we get, in that process, the social media stuff will come, and hopefully get the website up and rolling.
Yeah. Well, I will say this episode will air in a couple of weeks to months from now, and we'll be on the internet forever.
Yeah.
So just in case a year from now someone sees this episode, and they hear us talking about pina coladas and bourbon and sex on the beach, and Norland coffee is now a world famous trademark. How you spell it? Norland.
Norland. Yeah. Coffee company. Yeah.
If it's got skull and crossbones or something similar, I'll buy it.
We went with the mountains.
Okay. I like that even better.
Mountains and trees.
Yeah.
Kind of a rustic feel.
I like that. That's
I like
good.
to be outdoors.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can be notified every week when we launch new episodes. I'll see you then.